Have you ever known exactly what to do with your health and for your health, but you still struggle to do it consistently? You
Mhm.
know the foods, you know the habits, you know you'd feel better if you exercised or followed through with your plans. So, why is it still hard? Well, today we're talking about something that might be the missing link. It's something called self leadership, because lasting health often has less to do with knowledge and more to do with learning how to lead yourself through your life.
Why do we keep going back to quick fixes, even when we know they don't work? Welcome to the Coaches Hotline. Glucose, grit, and grace. Real talk with coaches, no sugarcoating.
We're here to help you ditch the diet cycle, stabilize blood sugar, and finally feel at home in your body.
Because health isn't about restriction, it's about freedom, energy, and confidence.
Let's dive in.
Welcome back to Glucose, Grit, and Grace, where we talk real life, real health, blood sugar balance, mindset, and sustainable wellness for women who are tired of starting over. I'm Coach Elaine, and I'm here with Coach Amber and Coach Elaine. And today's topic is one that I think is quietly underneath almost every success story and almost every struggle story, actually. And that's self leadership. And I think a lot of women have never been taught what self leadership is. So when people hear the phrase self leadership, they often think like a discipline or being hard on yourself or that you have to behave or stay within your lane. But that's not really it. Self leadership is more about the ability to guide yourself. It's making wise decisions when no one is watching. And it's knowing how to recover after a hard day or a messy day or when life gets too lifey. It's responding instead of reacting. And it's becoming someone that you can trust. And honestly, many of us have spent years outsourcing this skill. We outsource it to diets and the next big plan, or to apps, or to the scale, or to our motivation, instead of developing our own internal leadership. So, I recently have been reading the book Consistency Code, and I came across that term insourcing versus outsourcing. And I really loved it because instead of outsourcing our health to external systems, we start building internal systems, internal intentionality, awareness, and accountability. And that's what changes lives. So, Amber and Elaine, when you guys hear that phrase, self leadership, what what comes to mind for you?
So, I was definitely of the camp of self leadership back in the day was discipline and guilt, and all of those things, and really filling in, just making sure that I was in charge, and there was definitely no grace involved in that at all.
Right.
And as I have started to, really work in this lifestyle and this mindset, I have really had to be very intentional about learning how to trust myself again. I mean, when I
Mhm.
first started, it was like, I always fall off. I mean, just the same things that we hear from our clients. I always fall off. I can't stick to anything. I lack willpower most of the time, kind of things like that. And also that mindset of thinking that things need to be perfect for them to actually work.
Right.
And so when you start letting go of those things, you do start to build that trust, and that not needing for perfect conditions is that ability to breathe. Um, and that is where I'm starting to learn self leadership is, because when you can start trusting and you can start breathing, you can start making those decisions that really do serve you and what you're trying to achieve.
I love that. That's a good synopsis. Elaine, what about you?
For me, a lot of it is around the fact that just because I make one decision that may not have been what I would have done later, it's okay, and it's okay it's not an all or nothing. So I
Mm,
know I've always been pretty much, hey, I just had that cookie. So now, according to this diet plan, I've just blown it for the week. So it's all or nothing. And I didn't know how to get back on. So that self leadership for me was like, nothing told me in this book that I just read or this plan that I got on the internet.
right.
What do I do when this happens? What do I do when life happens? So that's where it came to me once I found, this is that's what self-leadership is. It's not about someone telling me, and it's about giving, like you said, Amber, we didn't give ourselves grace. So it's giving myself grace to say, it's okay in the next time I'm going to pause before I make a choice. And if I want to have the cookie, it's okay because it's my choice.
Mhm.
So that's what I think a lot of the self-leadership is being okay with the choices that you make, even if they're not what the book says you should do.
Mhm.
Right. And I also think it has to do a lot with awareness, right?
Mhm.
If we're
Yeah,
being aware of the choices that we're making and aware when we're making a choice that doesn't align with where we say we want to go,
yeah,
then instead of guilting ourselves over it, we can ask ourselves, why did I do that? Or what do I really want? Because my actions are saying something different than
right.
what I'm saying I want. So, and it's not about checking all the boxes. It's about being who you are and being motivated internally to be that person. So, for example, a like non-diet example would be, when you go to the grocery store and you have a grocery cart, and they
Mhm.
always ask you, please put the cart in the corral,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
But some people don't. Some people will just leave it by their car. I know. Every
Makes
once
me
in a
so
while,
mad.
though, I ask myself, what's the person I want to be? Do I want to be the person that just is lazy and leaves us by the car? Or do I, even if no one's watching and nobody knows about this decision I'm making, I want to be the person that puts it back into the corral because I want to be a person of integrity. And that's kind of an example of it doesn't matter whether you leave, I mean, in the big scheme of life, right? It doesn't matter if you leave the grocery cart by your car or put it in the corral. It makes somebody's life easier if you put it away, but it doesn't matter. But if it matters to me, and then I make that choice that aligns with what matters to me, that's what I think self leadership is.
Mhm.
yeah. And I also think it's about when we do make those decisions as to whether we put the card in the corral or not, or if we have the cookie or not, is okay. So I had it. It's not a big dramatic issue. It is something that just happened and it's okay. We don't have to make a big thing about it. We just move on. And I think how many times did I deliberate or I made a decision? And again, like you said, even non-diet, if I made a decision to quit my job, okay, so that's a big one, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do that because someone told me to, and there's no direction book for that. But I'm not going to be dramatic about it. I made the decision. I'm going to be steady with my decisions and I'm going to move on. There's no
Right.
reason to keep going back and lamenting, well, did I do the right thing? You already did it. So
Mhm.
to me, it's like, move on. Now, I wasn't there 3 years ago. Okay.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But
And
I
I
think it
think that
takes.
is something that that begs acknowledging is that this self leadership is not something that you just turn on and turn off.
Mm,
right.
In fact, depending on how long you've been practicing being the mean boss to
yeah,
yourself,
I like that phrase.
well, because that's what it reminds me of. Like, if you think about a boss, what are the bosses that you don't like? You don't like the ones that give you all the rules and get mad at you when you're not perfect. And yet we do that to ourselves, I
Yeah.
think, without even thinking about it. So if you've been mean bossing yourself for decades, there's a lot of unlearning and trying to build trust that needs to happen. And so even going back to that word grace is like, as you are trying to move into being the supportive boss, it's a journey and it requires grace. And sometimes you're still going to mean boss yourself. And then you need to
Mm-hmm.
go, okay, that was a mean boss moment. And what can I do now? So
Mm-hmm.
that grace is super huge in that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So, and I love that because I think so many women, and we've talked about this a little bit already. We've talked about waiting for an ideal condition or not being, or like outsourcing everything because we don't think we're in control.
Mm-hmm.
But self leadership says I can lead myself even in imperfect conditions, like Elaine was saying, right?
Yeah.
If I didn't make the best choice, or if my life is busy, or if I'm on vacation, I can still show up and be the person that I say I want to be because that's what I'm choosing every
Mm-hmm.
day. It's not something that is imposed upon me. It's something that I've decided I want to do. And I think that's the biggest difference. Why do you think, because we've been talking a lot about punishing and mean bossing ourselves and controlling ourselves, why do we think that self-leadership is that mean bossing or controlling ourselves?
Well, I think part of it is we're harder on ourselves than we are on
Mm-hmm.
others.
Mm-hmm.
So while I know I was in management and corporate IT for a long time, and I don't know how many times if something happened, we always did like root cause analysis and things like that. But then we said, okay, we learned from it and we moved on. But how many times do we do that to ourselves? How many times do we kind of what we said earlier, pause, look at it, and then think about how could I have adjusted this to have a different outcome to learn from it? And a lot of times we just kind of chastise ourselves. We, slap
Beat
ourselves on the
ourselves
hand.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't adjust our plans. We're like, okay, so this happened again. What am I going to do? I have no idea. So
Right.
I think that's where we don't give ourselves kind of where you talked about the grace and we
Mm-hmm.
don't kind of look at it. Even after we've made the decision and maybe it wasn't the one we made, we have to kind of think about, well, why did I make that? And then adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
So,
And I think when we guilt and shame ourselves and we spiral like that, and we're telling ourselves, well, I'm a loser, I can never do this anyway, what else are we going to do if that's what we're
right,
telling ourselves, right?
exactly.
Absolutely.
So then another marker then of self leadership is what you're saying is about that awareness and about
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to
Yeah,
to our actions and reactions.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I also think that, and I think the tide is starting to turn, but I think that a lot of us grew up with here are the rules. Here's what you follow. When you don't follow, you're in trouble. And that problem solving was left to like math problems at school, right? If but really being an adult is learning how to problem solve your life.
Mm-hmm.
And when we don't have those tools, Elaine, something that came to me when you were talking about outsourcing, and I'm going to make people mad, and I get it,
Oh,
because I've already been there. When you use gastric bypass, which I did, medications to lose weight, GLP-1 shots, HCG shots, which I also did,
Me
you
too.
are outsourcing your weight loss to something else that you think you trust because your situation is not uh perfect. You
mhm.
don't trust yourself to do it correctly, and so then we outsource it to literally a drug, or an invasive surgery. And I'm sorry if I just made you mad because you're doing it right now, but I've done those myself.
Yeah.
And that's literally why I did what I did, because I couldn't trust myself. And I
Right.
didn't use the problem solving or didn't have the problem solving skills that I needed to be able to make those decisions and move past and get out of my own way.
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up because, I mean, if we're trusting something else to do the job for us, then, like you said, we never learn how
Mm-mm.
to make the right choices for ourselves so that when the pills are gone, when the shots are gone, I did HCG, shots and pills for 3 times. And I thought every time, this time it's going to be different.
Yep.
And when I got off of them, my body did not trust me and I did not know what to do for my body. And so it all comes back. And that is a perfect example of outsourcing versus insourcing. When we're relying on something else, even if it's just a diet plan, even if it's not a shot or a pill, even if it's just a diet plan, if we're relying on that instead of our understanding of ourselves, both behaviorally and physiologically, when we understand ourselves, then we can make those better decisions for ourselves. We don't have to outsource it.
Yeah.
Because the outsourcing doesn't work long term.
Yeah. And I can tell you, because I had looked into the gastric bypass, and my thing was, I've used other things. I mean, I was on the shakes, things like that, 5 shakes a day for 800 calories a day, things like that. And I looked into gastric bypass. I thought, well, this isn't doing it. So I obviously have to do something that is a little bit more, I guess, drastic. But the reason I didn't is because I'm like, I still have to learn how to eat. I still have to learn. For me, it was, what's the magic pill, or what's the and I don't mean pill in a physical standpoint. What's that magic formula that is going to help me to be able to do this? And I think that's where a lot of it is I was still looking, even though I had that realization that I needed to make a different change. I still was looking at the diet plans to do that for me. I was still looking at whatever it was to do that for me. And I wasn't necessarily looking at it from a lifestyle.
Right. Yeah. We look at it with very tunnel vision, right?
Yeah.
Because we're so stuck on the number on the scale versus the overall health and all the things that we have to do for a healthy lifestyle. Yeah, that's
like
really interesting.
I was looking for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Right.
One of my clients calls it a secret decoder ring. I thought that was an amazing description.
Love that.
Like, I'm just looking for that secret.
And that's
I
what
think we have the secret decoder ring.
I think we do, because now we can understand our bodies, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. That's amazing. So, and don't hear us wrong. We're not saying that there's something wrong with support or structure, because you can't learn everything yourself. And it's too confusing to be Googling what you're supposed to do or asking AI what you're supposed to do, because you are an individual person. And when you can walk with somebody who has been through this, like we have, and can help you by asking the questions of, what do you want for your life and how do you want to get there? That makes a world of a difference. So we all need guidance, but we don't need to rely on it as our only answer. We need that guidance to help us understand what we want and how we can get that. Right? So our support should build leadership, not replace it. And that's what I love about what we coach, right? Because we're not telling you just follow this plan. We're telling you the why. We're telling you the how. We're telling you, you can't just do this in a vacuum. We have to learn how to do it in real life. Right. And so that's really, I think, that secret sauce. So when we look for outsourcing in a way that helps us learn how to insource, what then does that insourcing look like?
Finding what it is that we can do that makes it a lifestyle, which I really feel that was the key to me. It wasn't about, yes, it was stabilizing my blood sugar, and that has a lot to do with it from the science standpoint. But it was also knowing that nothing was off limits to me. All right. I could have whatever I wanted. It's just a matter of pairing it, correctly. And then it was so interesting, the fact that the things I thought I wanted, I didn't really want anymore. So, it's that transition of knowing that I can make this a lifestyle. And in the beginning, yes, it can be overwhelming, about balancing and stuff.
Because it's new information, right? It's a learning curve is all it is.
Right. But then after the first month, it's like, isn't it so hard? Exactly. And it's just those choices that you make. But the idea that you don't crave what you did before is just so eye-opening and so freeing. And I think that helps us get to our own self-leadership or insourcing better than what we
Mm-hmm.
could do before.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think the other piece is when we talk about self leadership is we're talking a lot about the decisions that
Mm-hmm.
we're making, and we're also talking about grace. Well, the decision doesn't actually have to do with what's on your plate. I mean, it does, but how the food got on your plate and what it was it the grocery store or the chef? It was the decision, the mindset, and the understanding,
Mm-hmm.
of this is what I'm going to have because I'm currently choosing to serve my body. Or
Right.
this is what I'm currently having because I'm choosing to serve my soul. And as we know, we need both.
Yeah.
One of the phrases that I used with a few of my clients. I mean, I use it with all my clients, but one of my clients is adorable, and she's like, "I just love that I'm only 3 hours away from my next PFC balance meal." And I was like,
Uh-huh.
"Yeah, absolutely." So you had the cookie. I hope it was delicious, and yay for you. Now we just go back and we balance,
Right.
and back in the day, that would have, like you said, Elaine, that would have I've been done for the day. And if I had the
Mm-hmm.
cookie in the morning, that's a whole day of crappy eating, where I'm not serving my body. And just so that learning to do different is so in your mind,
Right.
that I think that's the piece that really turns it into leadership.
Right. Yeah. The words that come to mind are intentionality and
Yes.
awareness. Right. And then also listening. I think self leadership too is being able to listen to your body
Mm-hmm.
and knowing, like for me, knowing that I love dairy, that dairy does not love me. Right. And so my self leadership is I choose not to have dairy, even though I love it. I don't
Mm,
have it often because I don't like how it makes my body feel. So
yeah.
then I'm in control of that choice. And that
Yes.
if I choose to have, I love yogurt, I love cottage cheese, I'll have it maybe once, twice a month. But if I choose to have it, I know what it's going to do to me, and I know that, and so it's just awareness, being intentional about it, and then listening to what my body is saying about it. And until
Yeah.
you understand about self leadership and about self awareness and about, getting your body cleaned out, it's really hard to determine what you want. Because, like you said, Elaine, we used to say, well, I want that cookie. I like that cookie. And
Right.
now, I have to have that cookie. My body's saying, I want that cookie. But now we don't have to do that. We can choose rather than be told
Yeah.
by the food what we want.
But the thing is, by being flexible in our choices, is the fact that because we can choose to have the dairy or whatever it may be, we don't necessarily want it as much
Mm-hmm.
Right.
either because we know we can have it and we can be flexible in that. I mean, if there's certain days that I'm like, I really want to have more of a plant-based type of meals today,
Mm-hmm.
um, then that's what I can do. I can make those choices, also knowing how to balance that. I
Exactly.
love like quesadillas and stuff. So I might forego the chicken and I put some beans on it, or I'll have a little bit of chicken with some beans, whatever it is. But you are very flexible in what you can do. And
Mm-hmm.
that flexibility, I think, gives you that ability to also to be able to, for your internal leadership, for your in-source leadership. That's the word I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
for,
Mm-hmm.
of being able to do that. Because
Yeah.
again, you just adjust your plans just like you would if you were working in an office somewhere. Things happen.
Yeah.
We just need to,
Exactly.
yeah. So,
Like if a friend calls and says, I want to go out to lunch today, and you're like,
mhm,
but I'm on this plan. I have to ask for dried chicken and cantaloupe. But you don't have to, because you can go out to the
right,
restaurant. You can go, oh, I just need a protein, fat, and carb, and here's how I'm going to
yeah,
make that work. And it
exactly.
doesn't blow everything. So I think so. Maybe we're saying self leadership has to do with knowing. knowing what your body needs or what your soul needs, and being able to act on that and trust yourself that it's not going to make you spiral.
And you
Right.
know what it also makes me think about is an episode that we did a couple of weeks ago on food noise.
Mm,
Because when you've got a lot of food noise, listening to your body is much more difficult.
that's true.
And I think when we do have that food noise, that cookie is the only thing in the entire universe that is going to satisfy us. Is
Right.
that the
Yes.
truth? No. But food noise will lead us to believe that. And so, again, that mindset, not to harp on it, but it's so important to really work on that mindset, that self talk, and that food noise as you're quieting your cravings, really leaning into that. What does my body feel? What does it make? What does make it feel good? There was a study a while ago, and they watched people who were, obese, um, and they fed them food that they loved, but they put intentionally like lots of hot stuff in it, so it was unbearable to eat, but they still continued to eat it. And that's food noise, 100%.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is, I've got to have this. Yes, this is currently painful. And I've caught myself doing that too. Especially after I had gastric bypass, I got super sensitive to sugar. And
Hmm.
I would still eat sugar, and then I would feel like crap for a good hour. But I did it again. And so it's really the training myself to go, wait a minute, that's an old pattern. I don't need it. And I don't like feeling like crud. And this will literally make me feel like crud.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you say that, Amber, because I've done that before too. I mean, definitely as I grew up, we were the clean plate club. All
Hmm.
right. You didn't leave the table until your plate was clean. And maybe part of that is when I decide to have whatever it is I'm going to have, and maybe it doesn't taste the best for me, I have to be okay to say, I don't have to eat this.
Hmm.
I can throw it away or whatever it is, because what benefit is it doing for me to continue to eat this? I don't enjoy it. It's not serving my soul or my body, honestly. So
Right.
Mm-hmm.
why am I continuing to do this? And it took me a long time to get to the point that it was okay
Hmm.
to not eat it and to throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again,
So
awareness and trust.
it is.
It makes me
100%.
Yeah.
think, we were out last night for Cinco de Mayo, and or we went cut that because this is going out much later. So I'm going to restart that sentence. We were out last night with some Mexican food, and I love Mexican food. That's my favorite thing. And often I'll go to Mexican food and I'll have like fajitas or something, without the extra tortillas and stuff, and it satisfies me. But last night I'm like, no, this is an appreciation meal. And so we sat down. I, ate my PSC 3 meals all the way up to it, and then we sat down and they served us chips. And I'm like, appreciation meal. I'm just gonna have a chip and enjoy it. And I took a bite of the chip, and I'm like, this isn't even good. And
Yeah.
so, even though I had the mindset of this is going to be an appreciation meal and I don't have to worry about the macros of what I'm eating, I took a bite of it and I'm like, I don't even want that. So then I went and had the other things that I liked. But
Hmm.
it's that awareness of not mindlessly eating. So that's self leadership too, right? And
Yeah,
that's
Absolutely.
really
absolutely.
where the freedom is, because self leadership doesn't need a perfect condition. It doesn't need life to cooperate to work, right? Because life
Right.
barely cooperates.
Life always shows
Things,
up.
yeah, life gets lifey, right? Hormones
Yes.
fluctuate, our energy dips or rises,
Mhm.
schedules change, stress happens, sleep gets messy. So, some let's talk about maybe some examples of what that self leadership, awareness, intentionality look like on that messy Tuesday when all of our plans have been blown up
Hmm.
and we're on the road, or we have extra stress or we have extra meetings. What are some messy day examples where we don't have to let stress and chaos get the best of us when we're making choices for our health?
I think one of the choices is, I mean, just as an example, I had been out longer than I thought I would be. I needed to get something to eat. I was getting close to 4 hours of my, 3 hours. Um, and the only thing close to me and the best place to stop was at a drive-through for where I needed to go next. I went to Arby's. I only got the sandwich. I'm not a big bread eater. I took off the top part of the bun, kind of folded it over,
Hmm.
and so I had half the bun with the regular Arby's. I did have put horsey sauce on it because I love horseradish sauce. And I had a Coke. And honestly, I was wearing a glucose monitor at the time. It didn't spike my sugar. I was satisfied and I could go on to do my errands that I needed to finish. And I didn't feel deprived. I didn't feel hungry. I just felt like it was, I mean, my protein, obviously my protein, my fat was probably the horsey sauce as well as the meat, and my carbs was the bread. So, I had that. I had water with me because I always have my water bottle with me. So it worked out really well and I felt fine about it. There was no guilt.
Yeah,
And that's
because
what I
there's
try to
protein, fats, and carbs, and you made the best choice
exactly,
with what you had. Yeah, that's what I tell
exactly.
my clients all the time. It's not
Yeah,
stressful. You just do the best with what you have.
right, right.
It's interesting. A mindset shift for me, um, during stressful times, typically my eating would go out the window. And it would
Yes.
be oh, I need all the carbs to make myself feel better. But at the end of last year, I have clinical depression. I take medication for it. I also am very severely ADHD. Um, and I had a really rough patch at the end of last year. And what was interesting, now that I'm reflecting on it, the one thing I was able to do was anchor what I was doing and what I was eating. Like life
Mm.
felt so out of control everywhere, but I knew I had to find a protein and then I had to put a fat and a carb with it. And that actually helped me not go off the deep end as far as my health is concerned. And it was the one thing that I could control with, and I love, the mindset shift because before that would have been the first thing out the door,
Yeah,
you know?
Hmm.
yeah. Right there with you.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so it kind of goes back to that 1% that we talk about.
Yeah,
What's
Yeah,
just a small thing that I can do today that supports me,
exactly.
especially when everything else around me is chaotic. So for
Yeah.
me, I always end up just putting off exercise because I'm like,
Mm.
hard for me to do it in the morning because of Hashimoto's and energy. I know that's the best time to do it, but it doesn't always happen. So then I
Right.
push it off, but then stress happens and I get busy and whatever. And then, 4 o'clock comes and I'm like, I'm exhausted or I'm still working or, whatever it is. But I have learned that that is the best thing for me, especially in stress, and that I
yeah,
don't have to do a full 40-minute hard strength workout, but even just taking a break and taking a 10-minute walk
Yeah.
is better for me than the path I was on. And so, again, that's self leadership, being aware of what I need and what helps me.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think it's when we don't defer to what the book says. Okay, we have to do what feels good for us and what feels right for us,
Yeah.
even if it's not what the latest internet thing said or whatever it is. That to
Mm-hmm.
me, that is so much around self-leadership and what helps get us through the messy days.
Hmm.
That I'm going to
Exactly.
do what's going to work for me. I'm going to take all of this stuff that I've learned, and then I'm going to make a choice and I'm going to be okay with it and move on. And I like what you said about the 1%, Elaine. I know if I look back at what I did years ago, when I was stressed, I would go to the grocery store and I would buy the chips and I would buy the donuts and I would buy the cake and I would get ice cream and I would get
Mm-hmm.
candy. And that's what would be in my
And I'd
cart.
eat half of it on the way home.
Exactly. And then hide everything that I was going to throw in
Uh-huh.
the trash so nobody knew,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But now I'm not going to say I don't have those thoughts. I've had those thoughts
Hmm.
and it's like, oh, when I go out tomorrow, I'm going to go get it. And you know what? When I get in the car, I'm like, I don't really want that. And I
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
go do something else. So it's okay that I had those thoughts. Am I executing on them? No, because everything that I've learned has said you don't need that. And I didn't really want it, but why did I think I wanted it last night or whatever it is?
Right.
So and to me, that is where on the messy days, we're like, okay, I can have that. And then when I gave myself permission to go get it, I didn't want it
Yeah.
anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
That's
that's how,
powerful. That's really
That is.
powerful. And that's a great example of self leadership because the difference of 3 years ago, you going to the grocery store versus now, I mean, you have learned how to lead yourself and make the decisions that support you.
yeah.
So I was thinking of our audience, if you guys are thinking, okay, I need this, but how do I build it? I wanted to kind of
Mm,
leave with
yeah.
a really, so get out your pen and paper, because I'm gonna give you 4 skills that I think, yeah, that I think this comes down to. Okay. So first of all, and we've talked about a lot of this already. First of all, is awareness. So being
Mm,
aware of what is happening right now. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What is going on around me? And being aware of what I said I wanted for myself, either today or this year or whatever, and understanding the difference between what I'm doing versus what I said I want. So that's
mm-hmm.
awareness. Second is ownership. So owning your decisions. No shame, just responsibility. So you had a cookie. So what? I mean, really, we're going to say that. So what? Your next meal is just 3 hours away, and you're going to, if you want to make sure that you do the things that your body needs, then you're going to have a PFC-free meal the next time, or you're going to balance your proteins, fats, and your carbs. And you're not going to go on a guilt spiral. You're not going to beat yourself up. You're just going to own the decision. This is what I decided. And, you know, that's what I'm going to do. But then also owning the decision of today, I want every meal to be a green light meal. I want to eat very clean and very balanced. Own that too. Don't
Mm-hmm.
don't not keep that promise to yourself. So ownership goes both ways. Decision making. So understanding how you're going to move forward, that 1%, what am I going to do in this situation that will support me, not derail me? And then follow through. That it's that course correction instead of waiting till Monday or next month or the new year to start over. It's nope, this is not what I'm doing something that I said I didn't want for myself. I'm going to stop and I'm going to course correct, even if it's that much, even if it's just 1%, it's a little bit down the road, it makes a huge difference. So we don't have to restart. So, Elaine, which of those 4 things, awareness, ownership, decision making, or follow through, resonates with you the most?
All do, but I mean, they really do. And I keep skipping from one to the other. But I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, the one that really pops out at me is ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, on both sides. There's no shame. It's just responsibility. It's just saying that if I did something that I'm not happy with myself about, okay, I did it. I can't undo it. So we move on. Let's look at maybe why I did that. What was going on? Pause, take a moment to take the time to say what was going on. So I'm taking responsibility for it. And what would I do differently next time?
Mm-hmm.
But also on the flip side is when I had my meal. Maybe it's, every day for whatever. I had a balanced meal. Yay, I'm taking ownership of it. I took responsibility. To me, it's almost like celebrating the win as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the one. I think I love all 4 of these, but I think that's the one that I would go back to as as a one that I feel is that pops out to me.
For me, I think it's decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And why I'm choosing that is uh, for a good chunk of my entire life, I've been a go big or go home, and I make these big decisions and these big plans, and so much is going to happen in this itty bitty little time, which is a really great way to self sabotage
Mm-hmm.
because it's not necessarily all that realistic. Like, do I want it to happen? 100%. Do I want it to happen, have happened yesterday? Absolutely. It's not going to. And so learning how to do things in 1% increments and knowing that that is okay has been super powerful for me.
And
And
that it's enough.
sometimes that it is enough. And when
Right.
I first started learning about this, I would get to the end of my day and I wouldn't feel like I had really accomplished a lot until I went back and I actually like started writing stuff down, and I was like, well, I'm further here and I'm further there, and they were all little 1%. But I don't think we naturally look at for those.
Right.
And so really starting to look for what 1% looks and feels like and knowing that that is enough, you
You
know?
probably get to your goal faster by
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
1% than if you looked at the whole big thing trying to get it all done within a short period, what you call a
Yeah.
short period.
Yeah, 100%. Because the whole big thing's overwhelming,
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
you know?
I
But
think that
1%,
sounds like a good future episode for us.
I
It does.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I
So,
love that.
yeah. So for me, and I'll just go real quick because I know we're going long, but for me, it's awareness, being aware of what's going on around me, of being aware of the choices that I'm making. Because like I'm a compulsive eater, so half the time before I started this and before I started understanding myself, I would have food in my mouth before I even thought about it. And
Mhm.
Right.
so for me, being aware is key. Being aware of the choices I'm making, being aware of what I want, being aware of what's causing discord in my life. So
Yeah.
really good discussion today, guys.
Yeah.
So the good news is for us and for everyone listening is that self-leadership isn't something that you either have or you don't have. It's a skill that you can build through intention, understanding, and repetition, right? So for you guys listening, I want you to think about when life gets messy, because it will. I didn't say if, I said
Guarantee.
when, right? It will. Pause and ask yourself, what would the healthiest version of me do next? And then take that small step. And it doesn't have to be a leap, it can be a tiptoe forward, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking or life changing, but just something. Even just saying, I don't want that for myself anymore,
Hmm.
is self leadership. And that's a big step to changing your course, right? So that one question can change your day. So if you've been waiting for motivation, if you've been waiting for Monday or waiting for the perfect plan, it's not going to happen. The next step is different. It's learning to lead yourself, because confidence doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from proving that you can trust yourself. And that takes grit and it takes grace. So we'll leave you with that. And we'll say thank you for being on another episode of Glucose, Grit, and Grace with us. If you know of somebody who is struggling with the things that we talked about today, please share this with them. Like, comment. We love to interact. And we will see you next week. Thanks. Bye
Well,
bye.
Bye.